like my motifs now are attached, even though I did not weave in the ends yet. I'll do that once the dress is finished. So before we move on to the skirt, I want to work the armholes. Remember the side seam markers that I kept, so they come in handy right now. So what I need to do now is work one row of single crochets around this edge here, and I'm gonna start right in the marked stitch where the side seam marker was. As usual, I'm gonna start by joining the thread in, and then I'll just work one single crochet in each stitch for now, for these cells here. This is what I have so far, and when I get to these spaces where I rounded for the armhole, I'm gonna go in this single crochet, for example, and I'm gonna continue my single crochet row. And these spaces, fill them up with as many single crochets as you see fit, but don't make it too bulky. Like for example, in my case, I'm gonna make 3 single crochets and 1 into this stitch here. So that would give me 4 single crochets, and then I'll continue filling the spaces up with single crochets as I see fit. And one tip, because you're gonna need to count these single crochets at the end, every 10th single crochet or every 20th, I don't know, whatever you like, mark it with a stitch marker. So it's easier to count when you need to know the entire number of them. And just keep going like that by the eye until you have this entire armhole opening covered with single crochets. Usually when you see like a double crochet here, that there was a double crochet, usually I cover it with 3 single crochets, but then each probably has their own methods. So I got at the middle of my armhole opening. It's up here at the shoulder seam. Funny, from here to here I have only 19 stitches, which is fine. So I marked the middle, the first middle part with a pink marker. It's just for me to know how many stitches I have here, because from yellow to yellow it's always 20 stitches. Now when I go down from the shoulder back down, I will try to have the same number of single crochets, but that's not necessarily needed. So I got at the end of this round, so that my last section has 22 single crochets, and I think that's going to be perfect as in what my number regards. I'm going to slip stitch into the first single crochet, and since up here I had 19 plus those 2 stitches from the bottom, that gives me 20 stitches per each section. So that's perfect. Let's count how many sections we have. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 multiplied by 2, that's 16 multiplied by 10. That's 160 single crochets. Divided by 2, that gives me 80 cells, and divided by 4, that will give me 20 pattern repeats, which is perfect. I do not need to decrease or increase any stitches in the next row. I'll just simply go ahead and continue working with my stitch pattern, which is our first row of our stitch pattern is the filet crochet row. So chain 3 and then chain 1 for the space, skip 1, double crochet into the next single crochet, and so on and so forth till you have this whole thing completed. A quick note, since in my case I do not need to decrease or increase anything, but let's say you got in this row of single crochets, let's say not an exact number, but you got, let's say, one more, for example, one stitch in plus. And how to decrease that? I would decrease it like this. When it's time to work my next double crochet, I would work the double crochet into the 2 stitches. So once, and then I go into the next stitch and take another loop, and then I work these 2 as 1 double crochet like that. And there you go, I decreased by 1 stitch. The same with increasing the stitch. If you need to increase, then I do not need to explain to you how you would increase your stitches. You'd probably not skip this, but you'd work your next double crochet next to into the next stitch, and that's how you would increase in case you need to increase. So that's what I wanted to tell you. So our armhole is already looking much better. Now there are 2 options here. I will show you the option on the original dress, of course, but if you don't want to, let's say you got tired of so much crocheting and you want to finish this thing faster, you can work single crochets with picots. Let's say every 4 single crochets, picot, and then 4 single crochets, picot. And that's how you might end your finishing, your armhole finishing. But I'm not done yet, so I'm gonna work the next round of our stitch pattern, and I will start with my single crochet. So chain 1 and single crochet in the same stitch as joined in the last round, and chain 3, skip 2 cells, and in the next double crochet work the 3 double crochet cluster, chain 3, skip 2 cells, single crochet into the next stitch, and like that till the end of the row. And you're supposed to have, I'm supposed to have 20 pattern repeats. I'm at the end of this round, and I'm gonna end it with a double crochet into our first single crochet stitch, only because I want to start my chain 6 space from here. So chain 1, single crochet into your next space, chain 6, basically we're repeating our stitch pattern the way the chart says so. You should have the chart in front of you. If you don't have it, you have to go back into the previous parts to find it, because I don't have it right here right now. So just continue in pattern till you get back here where you started. Finishing up this round with a slip stitch in the first single crochet, slip stitch into your next space, and this time I do not intend to finish this stitch pattern repeat, our 6 usual rows. I want to end this edging with this next row that I'm gonna make, and it's gonna be each space covered with single crochets, but this time I'm gonna have 9 single crochets and a picot, rather 8 single crochets and a picot. So chain 1, work 4 single crochets, picot out of chain 3, slip stitch in the 3rd chain from hook, and another 4 single crochet into the same space. since I'm not gonna be working the next rounds of this stitch pattern, and I mean I'm not gonna work the popcorns, I'm just gonna skip. I'm not gonna make the chain 2 space. I'm just gonna skip that, and I'm gonna go into the next space and work these 8 single crochets with a picot in the middle. So here is the end of my round. We end it with a slip stitch into the first single crochet, chain 1, cut the thread, weave in the ends, and that's how my armhole looks like. It has a pretty nice finished look. Now I want to edge the center in the front and at the back. This is probably unnecessary, but I like to mark my middle stitch and how I see where my middle stitch is. From this point here, from this stitch to this stitch, I went and counted to the middle, so it gave me this. And for the back, from this point and this point in the middle gives me a cell, which means a chain 1 space here. So that's my middle, and I like to start this row at the back into this middle stitch. This is a very easy edging. I'm going to be using the single crochets with picots. So every 4 single crochets I'm going to have a picot. Since this is the middle, I'm going to split the first into 2, and that would be 1. Yeah, the single crochets I'm working in every stitch. So that would be my 4th. If I'm splitting the 4 into half, I have 1, 2, so that should be, I should have a picot here. That would be my 3rd and 4th single crochet, if that makes sense. I mean, it makes sense to me. Hope it makes sense to you too. So the picot is chain 3, slip stitch in the 3rd chain from hook, and then continue adding single crochets around. So that's my 2nd, and then my 3rd and my 4th single crochet, and now another picot. 1, 2, 3, slip stitch in the 3rd chain from hook, and so on and so forth till you come back where you started. I'm almost at the end of this edging. So if I count here 1, 2, 3, 4, that would give me 4 single crochets, 1 picot, and then 2 single crochet to the next picot. I do not need to have that, so I'm gonna just skip this, or I'm just gonna work this stitch with this stitch together. Like I'll decrease. So that's 1 single crochet and then 1 more decrease. 1, 2, and that gives me 2 single crochets and 2 single crochets. I have 4 single crochets between the 2 picots. I did that in order to have like a sort of symmetry. So chain 1, cut the thread, weave it in, and your center edging is done. This is how it looks. It looks a little bit ruffled, but that's okay. It will sit better after you wash it, and especially when you wear it. This thing, it's gonna sit perfectly fine. Now on to the skirt of the dress. In a previous part, I stopped the skirt with this row, the row with clusters. And I said that you can continue the stitch pattern later and you can work on your dress however you like, but I still have to show you how to increase the pattern repeats. I know I also showed you on paper how to do that, and that's fine if you understood and everything, but I still want to make sure that I show you properly on the crochet fabric because I am very thorough. And if I were to be in your place, I would have liked to see that done in the video tutorial. So I'm just gonna go ahead and explain to you what I did here. I finished the first pattern repeat, the first 6 rows, and I started a new one. So my first row of the next pattern repeat is completed, and now I'm ready to start the increases. Like I said, if before one popcorn was worked over 4 cells, now in order to increase, I'm gonna work that cluster over 2 cells. So I'm gonna start the row with the single crochet in the first stitch, chain 3, cluster in the next double crochet. See, we're not skipping anymore 2 cells in order to work the cluster on this double crochet. I'm gonna work the cluster into the next double crochet, simply here. So chain 3 and then single crochet into the next double crochet. Now again, we do not want to have this 4 cells incomplete. So instead of 1, we need to have 2. So I'm just going to repeat this step again. Chain 3, cluster into the next double crochet, chain 3, and single crochet into your next double crochet. And you can increase the pattern repeats or the popcorns as often as you like, as many times as you like, depending on how you want your dress to look. I will be increasing every 2 pattern repeats. I will be adding 1 more pattern repeat. So instead of 72 popcorns that I initially started my skirt with, I will end up with 106 popcorns, and I'll be working like that till the end of this dress. Now, when you get to your end of the dress, when you want to finish the dress, you will work exactly like we did at the sleeve. For the last pattern repeat, for the last 6 rows, you're not gonna finish them and you're just gonna end them the same way you did for the armhole opening. That's all. So I think I covered pretty much everything you need to know in order to accomplish making this dress. I hope to see your versions of the dress, and remember, my Facebook page is called Crochet Realm. If you haven't seen it yet, you can go ahead and take a look at it. If you want, you can like it. If you don't want to like it, that's fine. I'm not gonna get upset. I am actually very, very glad that I was able to create this video tutorial for you guys. And I know that I will be making other video tutorials too. I just don't know when. But until then, I am very happy that you watched this, and good luck making your own dress.